Thank you for having me. It was actually a great opportunity, right? This actually gives me a chance to fulfill my purpose. So I'm thankful for you guys to be here. Thanks for this opportunity to kind of speak to you guys so I can share some of my knowledge, just like, people before me did. Like Derek said, man, I'm a project manager. Like we kind of renovate, hotels, we design them, build them, hotels, restaurants, nightclubs, fashionable boutiques, things like that. Um, and this is not something I grew up, just kind of, I didn't know this was available, right? But it's actually a culmination of my talents, my taste, and my purpose that all kind of came together, man. And I'm going to go through my story and then you'll kind of see how it all kind of connected to get me to where I am. But as a project manager, man, I manage a group of people to kind of get a project going and complete it on time and within budget. So we work with mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, plumbing engineers, architects, interior designers, structural engineers. So I kind of manage those all clients as well. Um, and again, a lot of the skills that I use, I learned in ball, right? And it translated over. So that's some of the things I kind of want you guys to keep in mind, right? You guys go through a lot of things, right, that can transfer over. It'll get you going in this world. A lot of things that other people don't have that don't play sports, right? My company now is actively pursuing candidates and talent that played sports just because you know how to deal with high pressure. Punctuality is not a thing, right? That's something you do every day. You can make decisions on the fly, and you'd be surprised. You work well with others, right? You'd be surprised how many people in the workplace don't exhibit these things, and these are what we consider kind of hustle attributes, right? This is nothing you have to be talented about. This is just pure effort, and this is something you have to do in whatever sport you're in, right? So that translated over. Um, to get into my story, man, it wasn't always good. It had its highs and lows like life, man. Um, and before I kind of get into that, I want you guys to kind of think about, man. I know a few of you guys want to be mechanical engineers. You kind of know what you want to go to school for and what you want to do, man. But I want you to kind of think about your purpose, right? Because one thing you know is your identity is it's greater, right, than that jersey, right? And then you got to also understand that your purpose is also greater than that career path that you choose. So just start to think about that, man. Start to think about what your purpose is, right? I know you guys are young and it takes time to kind of figure it out. But start to think about your purpose, your talents, what you like, what you don't like, right? It took me some time to figure that out, but it all kind of worked out. So um, just kind of getting into like my story, man. I'm going back long time ago, man. 2005. I think I graduated. I was a class with LSU in 2005, man. But in high school, you know, Houston Player of the Year, big dog in the city, high school All American. You kind of name it, kind of had those awards. And when you tend to do so in such a big area, right, people automatically assume, hey, this person's going to the NFL, right? You start to believe it. Don't get me wrong, that was a dream. So I kind of focused all of my energy into that. So yeah, just kind of going through high school as a big dog. Chose LSU, which was the greatest decision. That's how I met my boy Derek. We were actually roommates. Um, Went through that. Thought I was going to play my freshman year. We had some coaching changes. I had to catch up to the speed of the game. Kind of learn how to be on my own and handle business. So we go in. I redshirted my freshman year. We come back in. We're going into spring camp, and I'm that guy, right? First string, taking all the reps, big play after big play, um, and it was kind of set up for me to be, next in line. And I still remember, man, it was the last play of the spring practice, last play. I had just broken, made a big play, it's like 60 some yards. And I remember like tapping my helmet to come out. I was tired. And my coach was like, no, you got one more play, you'll be all right. Got in and ended up tearing my ACL on that play, right? So just like that, my life kind of changed. My mindset kind of changed, right? I just watched everything I had worked for um, just disappear, just like that one play. Split second, it was gone. And that was kind of tough to deal with, right? You go through phases of ups and downs, grief, depression, things like that. But one thing it did teach me is how to battle back, right? That's life, right? You're gonna have your ups and downs, but you got to be able to, bounce back. So yeah, ended up tearing my ACL. Had lost a year for that. Was struggling to get back. Dealt with injuries. Finally got back, and then they switched positions. Ended up going to receiver. Battled my way back on that. Right, started getting reps, and then I broke my foot. And this is right now. We're at my senior year, man. So because I was that guy in high school, that whole make it to the league thing kind of stuck with me, right? That was what people knew me for. They knew me as a football player, really good. He was supposed to go to the league. You're supposed to, take care of your family, buy this, buy that, do this, be on TV. And it still stuck with me. So even after college, right? I ended up playing arena ball, had fun with that. Ended up playing overseas for a little bit when I love to travel, so that kind of worked out. But I knew like this is going to come to an end, right? Um, so once that came to an end, right, I ended up taking a job out in San Diego, California. Didn't know where it would lead to. It wasn't making much money, but I knew it was the first step, right? Somebody had taken a chance on me because it was tough. I had no experience. I had networked. I hadn't put together a resume. None of that. I didn't know what skills I needed. I hadn't really worked. Like I did some side gigs, but I hadn't really worked before. So it was kind of hard finding a job, man. You get all these denial emails like, hey, we decided to move forward with another candidate. But I had this one guy take a chance on me. And it was because I played sports. And he was saying, like, hey, you have something no one else can offer here that I haven't seen. You can learn everything else. You learned that playbook, you can learn everything else, right? So he gave me a chance there as an operations specialist. So we got there. Then as I got into the operations specialist, I started to look up like, hey, I like this. Let's see if we can get to project manager. I actually saw that, 2 or 3 years before I actually got here. And then I ended up getting promoted, sent me to San Antonio. I was in the modular industry, which, it's not flashy or anything like that. But it was paid learning for me, basically. So I got a chance to learn like some of the skills, how to run a business, how to run operations, how to be better at, working, being in the real world, basically. That happened. And then within a year or so of being in San Antonio, one of the talent coordinator for the construction company I'm with now, she reached out to me. And she had known me from college. And that's one thing I'm gonna touch on is kind of your branding and how you carry yourself, your relationships. But she reached out to me, and she was saying like, "Hey, I have a job here, and what you're doing is similar, and it's in the industry I think you're gonna like." So she gave it to me. She was like, "Hey, if you want this job, it's yours. The owner already knows about you. The director already knows about you. Do well on the interview, and it's yours." And ever since then, man, it's kind of been a whirlwind. I'm here now. And things have kind of taken off, man. I've realized I'm in a space where not a lot of people that kind of look like us are in it, right? I go into meeting rooms and there's not a lot of us there. So I realized, like, I was told long ago what my purpose was, and it's just kind of being reiterated now. So that's kind of how why I'm here in front of you guys today. So just a couple of things I wanted to talk to you guys about, man, just about my story, man. It's kind of, first of all, it started out, I had to develop my faith, right? So when everything was taken away from me, right, I had no choice but to kind to lean on my faith, talk to God and kind of strengthen my foundation, man. My mom always told me, and this has always stuck with me, she was saying that God is a gentleman, right? He won't talk over all the noise. And at that point, being the big stuff and stuff like that, I thought football was it. I thought that was, quote unquote, my God at the time, right? That's where I put most of my energy. So that was taken away. It was taken away from me twice, actually, because I didn't do what I needed to do the first time. So yeah, like I said, that split second, right? I lost everything, but in those valleys, right, I learned how to battle back, right? I learned how to overcome. My character was strengthened. I realized what was important, right? So when I tore my knee in college, right, I remember going to church. I'd go to Bethany Church. I'd sit in the same spot every Sunday, leave at the same time, wouldn't speak to anybody. And this one lady, I've never seen her again. She came up to me and she said, and I don't think I've told too many people this, that you're here to show guys like you that there's another way, right? She said this. And I'm just like, whatever. So I go on about my business. And that was 06, 07. right, when that happened. So, you know, I heard that and it kind of went by the wayside, right? Just to fast forward to be here, right? And everything starts to connect. And then I had another instance where I was sat down, and this is kind of something I want to talk to you guys about. Is after one of my arena ball leagues, it was the off season. And one thing that, you know, Derry teaches is right, is like kind of your identity outside of ball. I had no identity outside of football, right? Everything I had done was just, hey, we know RJ, you're associated with football, but we're much greater than that as athletes, right? You all have multiple talents outside of football that you have to develop or you lose them, right? So that's kind of one of the things I want you guys to keep in mind, right? That's a point there. It's like, hey, figure out what your other talents are, right? Your other hobbies, what you like, what you don't like. So I had this time, right, to figure out what I like. I got a chance to take up photography, right? Figured out I found out I was good at that. I loved architecture, which help now, right? Because it plays a part in what I do. But I didn't have the time before. So while you guys have the little bit of time that you have, man, start to invest in yourself and trying to figure that out, man. Try new things, try and fail, right? You find out what you're good at. And one thing that'll kind of help you figure out your talent as well is just kind of pay attention to the people around you, right? Typically, people come to you for certain things because you're good at it and you don't necessarily know, right? Or they'll put you in leadership positions. I was always put into leadership positions, even though I didn't want to be that guy. All throughout ball, captains, even at LSU, when I wasn't playing much, I was voted to the captain's board, right? So just kind of pay attention to that, man. You got to spend time with yourself to learn yourself. A lot of people don't know themselves. They don't know what they're good at, right? And your talents, right? Once you develop those, you kind of figure out what your purpose is, you know, and that's the greatest thing of all. I live in an area, man, where, and I live and work in an area where, you know how LA is very pretentious. A lot of people they don't too much care what the person is. So one of the things they ask is, what do you do for a living, right? It almost equates to how much respect I should show you. And I make it a point not to do that because I understand like your purpose is not tied to how much you make, what your title is, or anything like that, right? So you guys got to start thinking about that. And if you haven't already, man, just start developing those other talents. Because again, even if you were to make it to the league, right, or any league, go professional for however long, you get 10 years in it. You get there at 21, 22, 31, 32, you still have your whole life in front of you, right? And we have stories, you know, we've all heard them where, you know, athletes gain all this money, they retire, and then you hear about them, you know, being broke. Don't be one of those guys, man. And it's tough. And that's something, you know, I applaud Derry for doing, trying to get to you guys earlier. So you can prevent that, man. So just focus on your talents, try to lean in on your purpose. Like I said, I was thankful. I had my mom would always pour into me. My dad would always pour into me. My friends would always kind of put me in those positions. And I started to notice that. And I had this random woman kind of tell me my purpose. And although I didn't pay attention to it at that time, it came back kind of full circle. After that, man, I want you guys to understand, like, hey, those purposes and those talents, man, you can lose them if you don't develop them. Just like you train on the field, you have to train off the field, right? To develop those things that set you apart, man. You guys already have intangibles. You guys already have a leg up on the working force. People don't, I sit and watch it every day. They don't know how to deal with pressure, right? You guys, 3rd down and 10, right? You got to make a play or, you know, full count, bases loaded, right? You've been in those situations, that stuff directly translates over. So just start to kind of hone in on those things. And another thing I want to touch in on, man, that I think is really big, right? So you have this idea that you're supposed to be in the NFL, right? Or whatever league, MLB, whatever you're doing, or you're supposed to do a certain thing. And this is because people cast these expectations on you. The biggest thing, and one thing I'm thankful I've learned how to define everything for myself. So you really have to take time to figure out what you want in life and how to go about it, what success is to you guys, because you will hear it on social media, you'll hear it on the media. You're not worth anything unless you do this, have this, know these people, right? And that's not what it's about, right? So you have to clearly define what you want out of life, the steps you need to take, or someone else would do it for you, right? And you will be miserable, right? You'll get it and you'll find out that it's not fulfilling, man. A lot of things people do, right? Um, it's not for them. It's because somebody projected that onto them. Man, I know people that went to school to be lawyers, doctors, right? They get there and they figure out this is not what they want to do, but it sounded good. They came from a family of lawyers and doctors and things like that. So clearly kind of define things for yourself, and you have to take time to do this. You have to actively do these things, right? Even though I know your schedules are busy, but you have to take the time to do so. Um, and the biggest thing I want to talk about, man, is your brand and your relationships, right? So your brand is when people think about, Caleb, Blake, CJ, right? Chaz, is just like when they hear those names, what do they think about, right? What are the first things that come to mind, right? Is this kid punctual? Is this kid, staying out of trouble, hard worker, right? Is he kind to others? Because one thing people remember is how you make them feel and how you conducted yourselves. Just to tie in how I ended up here with that. In high school, and this is funny, in high school, I had a teacher, her name was Ann Howe, older lady that people would kind of, rub off, right? But she had a lot of knowledge. I would always speak. Talk to her between class, outside of class, because she had some gems and just being respectful, right? It turns out that she is the wife of the owner's best friend, right? So they would talk about me on the golf course. So the owner of this company now knew about me way back in high school. And that's kind of the craziest thing to me. And it's all because, I treated this woman with respect. I paid attention. Even when, most people expect the star athlete, right, to, be big headed and not care and things like that. It's just being genuine with people, right? So she was, like I said, the wife of the owner's best friend. So they knew about me, and that's crazy. That was 15, 16 years ago. And then also too, when I was in college, our talent coordinator now was an academic advisor at LSU. She wasn't my academic advisor, but I would always speak to her in passing. I never got in trouble. And those are the things she remembered, right? I was always on time. You didn't have to worry about me. I took care of my business, right? And I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know people were paying attention. I didn't know people were watching. But now as I started to become more aware, I realized, I have cousins, nieces, nephews, parents, friends, right? They see how you move. They watch, what you do, what impact you have, what you're doing, right? And that speaks to you guys, right? You guys are put in a position that most people aren't put in, right? You get to run out on that field, interceptions, tackles for losses, touchdowns, right? And that's what people see. And that also draws them into everything else that you're tied into. So understand, like, hey, you're a brand, man. So you can actually manipulate that, right? You can control that like they do today, right? So always, just understand that you represent your family, yourself. And that's equity in yourself. That's an investment in yourself. So when people think about you guys, they think about a high quality project. They think, this is an outstanding citizen, right? They're willing to give you a little bit more. And you guys are, out here causing havoc, man. That's what they're going to remember you for. So just kind of focus on that, man. Take everything to the max. Put your best foot forward, right? To improve your brand, man. And lastly, man, what I want to tell you guys is make sure you enjoy the ride, man. It's going to be ups and downs. And a lot of people don't realize, like, that's a part of life, right? You've seen it on the field, on the diamond, on the court, right? Things sway one way or another, man. But always remember, it all works out for the greater good, man. For those that love the Lord, man, you guys will be all right, man. Once you kind of figure that out, man, you can kind of take on the world. Things that happen, you will bounce back, right? That's what happens. And a lot of people aren't built like that, but you guys have gone through the gauntlet before. And again, like I said, things just work out, man. You look back over your life, you've been through some things and you've made it through, you've made it here, right? So just continue on that kind of path, man. Enjoy life, man, but make sure you're spending like these specific efforts, right? You're making a conscious effort to kind of develop your identity. Make sure you increase your faith first before you do anything, because you have to have a strong foundation. Work on your brand. Make sure you're speaking and cordial to everybody. Work on those relationships, right? You guys want to get in certain fields, make sure you're reaching out to people in those fields, right? to gain all of the knowledge you can. If you can get into internships, we had a guy that actually reached out to me via Instagram, man. And I typically don't check those, kind of spam messages, I guess, but it just happened. One day he reached out. He's like, hey, I've known you since LSU. I see what you're doing. I'm a construction technology major, right? He reached out, and I had just happened to be going to dinner with the owner, and I showed him a message. He was like, hey, man, get his resume, talk to him, see what he wants to do. So we actually worked some things out and got him an internship here. He's actually been doing pretty well, man. And it's just, he made that effort to reach out, right? And then he got here and he's been hustling ever since. And I know one thing we're trying to do is make sure we get you guys in front of people who are in the fields that you want to get into. So that will be coming. But yeah, that's kind of my story. Just to, kind of keep it quick. And one thing too, I know Derry will be able to share, like if you guys have questions or want to talk about anything, Derry will be able to share my information with you guys. You can reach out anytime. I might not get to you right that minute, but I will get back to you because again, that's part of my purpose. And I appreciate you guys for having me to allow me to kind of extend that and kind of further that. So Derry, you can open it up, man.
RJ, that was awesome. I definitely appreciate that. Few things that I want you guys to take away from this and make sure that you listen, because this is information that I think he's been through it. So every level that you guys are trying to go to, he's been there, he's done that, and he's successful in what he's doing now. The most important thing that I got out of this, the reason RJ is successful, and he reiterated this probably 3 or 4 times more than anything else, is his faith and his relationship with Christ and his relationship with God, the Father. Because if that's not intact, if that's not the center of everything that you're doing, then nothing else is going to work out. And so, God will send you people, send you signs to make sure that he positions you to get in the best place for you to be successful. And that's what happened to RJ. So he positioned himself because he developed a relationship with Christ. And then the other thing I got from him was he listened to people around him that revealed his talents. Sometimes we don't know our talents, but God can send someone to you and say, look, man, this is what you're good at. And he found out what his niche was. And then the last thing, figure out what you like and define success for yourself. Don't let social media, don't let your friends or anybody else define success for you. You define your success. You define your success. You make yourself happy. What is it that drives you and motivates you? So this is something that I think